I've gotten a sense now what worship has been like here, friends. But I got to tell you, for me, those Sundays at the beginning of the pandemic all kind of blended together where I was. It was quite a routine. I'd hang out all Saturday at my house, creating the videos that we needed for worship. Then Sunday morning, I'd pack up the computer and the microphone. I'd pick up my friend Stu, who was also my neighbor and also our worship technician. It was a small town. We'd get to church, then we'd unpack the computer and put the worship script up and load all the recordings that we worked on all week, get our broadcast system up and humming. And then, and only then, I would preach right into a computer, my little iMac setup. Well, to a computer and to Stu, truly. In the first grip of the pandemic, I was living in Honolulu. I can feel your sympathy, thank you. Yeah, that's right. The city had a strict shelter-in-place rule, though. But I was exempt from some of the more strict pieces of that as a clergy member. So there were only a few people I saw for months. And Stu was one of them. And he was the only person with me in worship for a year. So I remember looking at hymns and thinking, I wonder if Stu will like this hymn. And I'd be working on a sermon and think, is Stu going to think this is important? Or worst of all, I'd be thinking of a story and I'd have to wonder, will this make Stu laugh? And that was tough because Stu didn't like corny jokes or wordplay or dad or uncle jokes, and that's about all I've got. Sometimes friends would ask me about church, during the pandemic, what's it like? And I would happily report, I made Stu laugh today. That was the big one. And my friends who grew up in large churches where the first half of the service is worship music performed by a praise band with plexiglass around the drum kit and the broody lead guitarist and the really happy, positive lead singer with their Taylor acoustic going. You've all been there, They're always a little confused about our kind of worship. Without a praise band, how can you worship? I explained that praise in Unitarian Universalist circles looks a little different than that. In fact, we don't use the word praise in worship that often. Where do we use praise, though? That's the question. Has anyone here ever been a first-time parent or observed? Okay, all right, okay. Now, a lot of parents adopt a philosophy of operating from a praise and affirmation place and pledge to avoid all actions that can be interpreted as negative or shaming. This strategy and this kind of parenting is to affirm and praise the behavior you like and then to redirect behavior that you want to discourage. Does this sound familiar to people? All right. The problem is that other people have figured out your plan. People say like managers of stores that put candy within a tiny toddler's reach. So I'm sure more than one of you have heard something like this. Wow, honey, you're doing a great job of asking for what you want, but let's redirect your energy away from screaming at the top of your lungs. Or, darling, your tiny hands have surprising strength, which I want to affirm. Now, please let go of my hair with them. Or, sweetie, I see you holding that breakable figurine above your head. How about some yummy candy instead? Of course, parenting is not all bribing children with candy or paying for broken figurines. It holds the joy of seeing a child interacting with the world and the world interacting with that child. The joy is a powerful force. This feeling, this experience of a parent relating to a child is one at the center of many of the world's religions. There are some things in the world so powerful, so joyful, so moving that our ancestors might have thought we should make a religion out of this. Of course, I'm oversimplifying a few millennia of development here, but there's little doubt that those powerful, primal, universal feelings of all kinds, over time, gave rise to texts about those feelings. And they gave rise to rituals and to rites and to religions and to sanctuaries and so much more. But not all these texts are about parents relating to children. What are a lot of these ancient sacred texts that we deal with about? What are they concerning? Anyone? Being good. Oh, I like that. But a lot of them are sacred texts about humans interacting with the divine or with God. Yeah, there are floods, there are quakes, there are storms, there are rocks, there are hills, and there's also love, and there's fear and justice and despair and joy and longing and compassion. And we inherit many of these stories as texts about humans interacting with the divine in our midst, with God. And these are some of the most powerful stories we know and that we tell. And one of the finest minds in the world investigating and educating about these texts, these stories, is just a few hours from here. Professor Anthony Pinn at Rice said this to Terry Gross on Fresh Air about God's work with humans. He quotes, "God's presence in the world is best depicted through God's involvement in the struggle for justice. God is so intimately connected to the community that suffers that God becomes a part of that community." Dr. Pinn is one of the foremost authorities and thinkers in the field of Black religious experience in the United States. And he writes frequently about Black humanism as well. And his comment that God is so intimately connected to the community that suffers that God becomes part of that community comes from his explanation of the foundational work of James Cone, the founder of Black liberation theology. In Cone's work, he says God is the oppressed among us. Not that God is watching, not that God is feeling the pain. God is the oppressed. When Jesus says in Matthew, "Whatever you did for the least of my siblings, you did for me," some hear this as, "Whatever you did to one of my siblings, you did to me." In Cone's masterwork, The Cross and the Lynching Tree, he gets right to the point of society's greatest illness. He says that God is who people in a society can kill with impunity. That's who God is. Today is the International Transgender Day of Remembrance. Our siblings the world over have been gathering this weekend and will gather still this evening to remember those trans lives ended by violence in the past year. I attended a remembrance held and hosted online by the Unitarian Universalist Association on Friday, and it was powerful. The remembrance included statistics about how this nation still treats people who are transgender, and specifically people who are transgender people of color. Nearly half of this country's Black trans people have attempted suicide. Black trans women are killed at a rate far above any national average. We learned about many of the loving lives ended by violence in the past year. And then we were asked to hold in our minds the names or lives of those who suffered, and then to sing together. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. And as we sang, I thought of all the lives lost to senseless, hateful violence first, and all those who mourn their deaths. And then we sang again. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. I thought of all those, so scared by the way a state seems so eager to harm our trans kids and their families by denying them care, by othering them, as we sang again. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. And for some reason, I thought of Stu. My worship tech, my friend. He's not trans, but he's sick. He has cancer and a long road ahead. And that service wasn't for Stu. I get that. It wasn't about cancer. But when we open our hearts, sometimes everything falls out. You know? And that's church work, friends. That's right. Because for millennia, this is where we come. When we're suffering, we come here. When we're joyful, we come here. Church is built with the most powerful feelings humans have ever known. And I know you are carrying a lot today. For those who hadn't heard yet, as Daniel said, I am so sorry to be the ones to tell you that around midnight last night in Colorado Springs, a gunman opened fire in a nightclub for LGBTQ plus people. As many as 5 people are dead. As many as 18 are wounded. The patrons subdued the attacker themselves, who's now in custody. Yeah. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. This is where we come. Like children who so rightly felt the affirmation of praise. Like children who learned through pain and loss and God-darned stubbornness. We are held in this loving place, this loving embrace of generations who gave and gave of themselves. Who are still giving the full measure of their devotion today, whether they asked to or not, to make something good in the world, to heal you, to hold you. And I say to them, thank you. Where else are we going to go? When speech, when hoping, even when action aren't enough. We go to church, friends. Where do we go when the pain we feel for our siblings or ourselves is almost more than we can bear? We go to church, friends. Where do we go when we are afraid of the future of those we love the most, Yeah, we go to church because this is the house that love built brick by blessed brick. Elizabeth Alexander tells it straight in our reading praise song for the day. She says, "Say it plain, that many have died for this day. Sing the names of the dead who brought us here." When I sing their names, I don't know whether it reaches them or helps them in any way. There are days I will tell you, I don't know if anyone is listening at all. But when I sing their names, I know this: I am blessed. And I say thank you. The great liberation theologians like Cone have been trying for decades to get their message out, to sing their songs. And if we listen, we know we cannot deny that dismantling the structures that create oppression, disentangling the wealth and power a few reap from the suffering of billions, disrupting the hate and fear in hearts, that is church work, friends. And that is worthy of praise. That's right. Now, I'm going to be on a plane later today to Cincinnati, where I'll celebrate Thanksgiving as all vegans do, glaring joylessly at everyone in sight for 3 hours straight. That's right. And then on Saturday, I'll perform Stu's wedding to his beloved. One of the reasons I'm performing Stu's wedding when I am is that his health insurance is running out, friends. What is that? He's almost at the end of his school semester and he can't start another one with the chemo he's got to go through. So yes, I promise, not that it matters to you, but he and his fiancée have been planning to marry, but they're just moving the date up in part so that his partner's love can include the health benefits of her employment for him. And even that will not be enough to cover the costs of his care. You want to know who can harm the poor? The vulnerable? The sick? With impunity? You don't have to look far. Tarrant and Dallas counties have the largest number of people in medical debt in the country. The country, not the state, the country. Tarrant County is number 1, Dallas County number 2, while medical centers here are recording record profits quarter after quarter. And your social action council, this church, and others with a heart for justice, our neighbors in faith, have had just about enough of that. For the past few weeks, we have been partnering with a not-for-profit founded by former debt collection executives to purchase all of the outstanding medical debt in Tarrant, Dallas, Collin, and Denton counties that the organization can get their bloody hands on. They can purchase it for about a penny on every dollar, and before this year is out, families across the Metroplex will get a little letter or a call explaining that their debt was purchased by the church, by the Social Action Council, or another friend in faith, and that it's been abolished, forever gone. You better believe that's church work, friends, if I ever saw it. Now, here's the thing. We may never know who we helped. There won't be any thank you cards. Is that all right with you? There may never be a heartfelt praise of receiving this gift, but there will be the real and tangible knowledge that some part of another's tremendous suffering is ended. And isn't that what our ancestors who built their love into a church that lives in each one of our hearts, isn't that what they would want? You think they need a thank you note where they are? No. It's in your generosity. It's in your care for others. It's in your love of all for exactly who they are and exactly who they long to be that we offer our thanks. And they're speaking still. If you listen, you can hear them. We are sending you light to heal you, to hold you. We are sending you light to hold you in love. We are sending you light to heal you, to hold you. We are sending you light to hold you in love. We sing their names, the lost and the fallen, on this day of remembrance. We sing their names, the ancestors who survived and who shaped us in love on this day of worship. We sing their names, the children who will follow and their children after them on this day of praise. Praise, song for the day, unceasing, unending praise, praise song for the day, unyielding, unshaking praise, praise song for the day, unafraid, undying praise, just for this one precious day, to feel and to say with all that any of us ever were, thank you, ancestors, thank you, children, thank you, God, and may it ever be so. Blessed be, and amen.